of SPCH 1113, Introduction to Public Speaking for the first summer session, scheduled for Thursday, June 13th, 2024. I have a number of informative speeches to show tonight, but then we're going to transition very quickly into persuasive speeches, keeping in mind that in 2 weeks, the first summer session, all 19 sessions, is going to come to an end. We begin with a mental health speech from Emma that she has produced on Loom. You can see above my head, the transcript is ready to go. It is AI generated. And here is our first informative speech of the evening. This is Emma Johnson on understanding mental health.
And what it is and kind of more information on it. I chose this topic because I'm a psychology major and it just was something that I feel like I'm passionate about. So, what is mental health? The true definition of mental health is the overall well being of your emotional, psychological, and social health, as well as even physical health, can contribute as well. Sometimes, when you don't take care of your mental health, it can lead to physical issues or you could get sick, possibly. It can lead to stuff like that also. So that's why mental health is so important to maintain so you can live a healthy and a happy lifestyle for yourself. How does mental health affect you? Mental health is something everyone should be aware of and make sure is accounted for in their personal life. Things can get bad quickly if you don't manage any type of stress or trauma properly. Everyone goes through many different things every day that affects them in multiple ways. You hear that saying that's like, you need to always treat people with kindness because you never know what someone is really going through or what someone is dealing with on a personal level. As long as you manage your stress and take care of yourself by not overdoing it, you should be able to manage your mental health and do it in a healthy way. Dealing with traumatic events, though, can cause concern for more drastic treatments, such as medicine, therapy, or time off of work or school. And all of it affects everyone in different ways. It just depends on how you are. Why does mental health matter? Mental health is so important to take care of. If you're not careful, bad mental health and many mental illnesses can lead to suicide. This is why it is so majorly important to take care of your mental health and to also check in on others, your friends, your family, and just to make sure they're doing okay. Suicide is never the answer to any problem that you run into in your life. If you or another person you know is showing signs of being suicidal, then you definitely need to reach out and get help from, some form of support or call the suicide hotline 988 as soon as possible. But the three main factors that control your mental health is your thoughts, feelings, and actions. So when your mental health is not doing so well or you are feeling sad or down, it can affect your thought processes and ability to concentrate or give you confusing thoughts about what to do. Mental illness can cause you to feel a lot of different emotions. These emotions can make you feel depressed or anxious and can be an underlying mental illness. And thoughts and feelings kind of mix in together with each other, but they each have their own individual meaning. Actions, your thoughts and feelings affect your actions. If you are having feelings of sadness or you're upset, it can cause you to act differently and affect your daily life. As humans, as people, we act based on our feelings and thoughts typically. When should you take action with your mental health? When you start to feel any symptoms of any type of mental illness or think you might suspect you have one, you should go to the doctor as soon as possible and let them know what is going on so that they can help you. There are a lot of different types of mental illnesses out there. Some can be easily treated while others can be more complex and require more action than others. As well as if you see someone else who might be struggling, not just yourself, you need to check in on them to see if they possibly might need help or even just someone to talk to. Um, it is so important to have support from family and friends in life to help encourage you. Even if your friends like say they're fine, sometimes that's not always true, and you just need to check on your friends and family on top of yourself. And only you know what is going on inside of your head, and that's why you need to take action when action is needed. It can be, something as simple as just taking a mental health day off from work or school, or just getting some self-care and doing what is right for you mentally to help you if you've been very stressed lately. And it doesn't always have to be going to the doctor or getting put on medication. It can be something as simple as taking the day off from work or school to spend time with family or by yourself or just to relax. It can be as easy as that, but not all cases are like that. Everyone is different. What should you look out for? So some symptoms to look out for are changes in mood, feeling overly tired all the time, insomnia, changes in appetite, impulsive behaviors, overwhelming feelings of fear or anxiety, changing of feelings in things you normally take interest in, hostile or violent behavior, any type of substance or alcohol abuse, or any type of social withdrawal. All of these things could possibly be an underlying mental illness and could possibly mean that you need to reach out for some type of help or, need to reassess what's going on. And these 4 sites are my works cited, and that is everything that I have for you today.
She provides some helpful pointers because these are the types of issues that are prevalent through all societies around the world with demographics, age groups, ethnicities. What types of things should you be looking for regarding mental health? Let's mute our audio. Now let's play this from the beginning to do 2 things. Check her complete sentence structure, but also examine her eye contact, and eventually we will check out her slide structure for the design consistency. Remember, above my head on the webcam is an artificial intelligence generated transcript. Here is closed captioning. Are they the same? I would say pretty much so, yes. In a circumstance like Emma's, you can never assume that everyone knows what mental health is. Look at the purple highlighted data on the right-hand side. She's defining the term. Then take a look at her slides. What is mental health? With the 3 different images at the bottom of the screen, which are generic, which is fine. And then on her next slide, how does it affect you? She's doing it more in a paragraphing approach here, which is appropriate. You can still be extemporaneous, which brings the conversational style across. Now, look at the way that she has her webcam set up. Nothing calls attention to itself in terms of lighting. Remember what I've done in the past with this. I have a ring light that is connected to the top of my monitor. I'm basically a 31 or 32-inch monitor with my webcam right up on top. So you can tell that she practiced that, the light directly above her head, and you can manipulate that. You don't want to be basically in the dark. All of these little things matter for an attractive package. Timer on the left-hand side. Mental health is so important to take care of. Let's take off the closed captioning for just a moment. We'll continue to let this play in real time. What does she have the opportunity to do here? On the left, a lot of material. Suicide is never the answer to any problem, among other points that she's bringing up. Then with thoughts, feelings, and actions. All of this is designed to do two things. One, inform, and two, give her the opportunity, depending upon what she's doing in this practice, because every practice session is different, as you know. What is she focusing on in terms of her delivery? Let's bring up her audio.
You're feeling sad or down, it can affect your thought processes and ability to concentrate or give you confusing thoughts about what to do. Mental illness can cause you to feel a lot of different emotions. These emotions can make you feel depressed or anxious and can be an underlying mental illness. And
so she goes on. Now, let's move to the last minute or so of her presentation. Bring up the audio. How is she concluding this? What does she think is important in terms of informing the audience, you in particular, about being aware that mental health or having some issues with mental health is not unusual? It's normal. Here's her conclusion.
lately, and it doesn't always have to be, going to the doctor or getting put on medication. It can be something as simple as taking the day off from work or school to, spend time with family or by yourself or just to relax. It can be as easy as that, but, not all cases are like that. Everyone is different. What should you look out for? So, some symptoms to look out for are changes in mood, feeling overly tired all the time, insomnia, changes in appetite, impulsive behaviors, overwhelming feelings of fear or anxiety, changing of feelings in things you normally take interest in, hostile or violent behavior, any type of substance or alcohol abuse, or any type of social withdrawal. All of these things could possibly be an underlying mental illness and could possibly mean that you need to reach out for some type of help or, need to reassess what's going on. And these 4 sites are my works cited, and that is everything that I have for you today.
I would probably say thank you, but it's a small thing. Depends upon how you feel at the time. I can tell you that every take from a professor in the way in which things go up on the screen is different. And Emma and all of you in this class will be the same. There will be certain sentences that you use in practice or in a session that we don't see that you may include or not include in another. Very good job here. The reason that we were not getting all of these sentences in order is because I was moving around. Now, last thing, and this is why it is so vital for you from the self-awareness standpoint. Closed captioning, checking the audio, checking for vocalic, grammar, or slang issues. How do you look in the webcam? Now, title slide, nothing calls attention to itself. Sometimes when you go on the website, people will have Summer 1, 2024, or have the name of the course. I'm not as concerned about that as I would have been in the past, but at least it's not boring. It's not just text on a generic slide. And then we move on, defining the term. What is mental health? And this is what I was referring to a couple of moments ago, where she has the yoga, people talking, and on the far right-hand side, that looks like a counseling session. And then we move on to the next graphic. How does it affect you? Why does it matter? Again, all of the different materials that she has on the slide, happy and sad faces, images, text whatever is going to help her remain extemporaneous. You can see that I'm waiting for the transition to the next visual. When should you take action? What you should look out for. This is why there is so much stress on incoming college students. There are many more options that you have in terms of mental health counseling on college campuses than many of your professors had, myself included, when we were students. And we'll get right to the end with the works cited. So when I am looking at this, or when you're looking at it, really breaking it down. Is she informing us? Yes. Does she have quality research? Yes. Does she know the subject matter? Yes. Has she placed the slides in such a storytelling mode with the text image balance and design consistency that her extemporaneous ability, her conversational quality, her gravitas, her source credibility as a speaker comes through? And the answer for all of those is yes. Here's her title slide again. So Emma, nice job. We will move on to our second presenter of the evening. I always wait a moment for my webcam to show up on the next tab. This is Marilyn. She is going to be looking at the subject of occupational therapy. As I told you, with my paid subscription to Loom, I'm always getting the transcript, which is pretty accurate. The reason that for our first presentation, I was skipping back and forth, that's why some of the highlighted data for Emma's was winding up underneath the webcam. But this is our second informative speech, Marilyn discussing occupational therapy.
Topic of occupational therapy. What is occupational therapy? Occupational therapy is an important medical career that helps individuals with daily tasks. It's a branch of healthcare aimed at helping people who have physical, sensory, or cognitive issues or delays. Common ways occupational therapists help patients are by teaching new ways to perform daily tasks, demonstrating how to use assistive technology, educating caregivers on how to help them best, creating daily routines that promote independence, and showing strengthening and stretching exercises. It also promotes independence in patients and aids patients in developing their motor skills, regaining mobility, and improving functionality. They may assist disabled or injured individuals as well. Who does it serve? Occupational therapy serves patients with temporary conditions such as strains, sprains, or breaks, those who have disabilities that are physical, mental, or learning, such as sensory processing disorder, developmental disabilities, or amputations, or chronic conditions such as carpal tunnel. I have carpal tunnel, and I have been to occupational therapy several times, and also arthritis. That is another chronic condition that might be treated in occupational therapy. Certain diseases and disorders very often are seen in occupational therapy settings as well, such as cerebral palsy or Parkinson's disease, and those who have a history of a stroke. Stroke patients very often go to occupational therapy because they have to help relearn their fine motor function skills and also their cognitive development. The ages that attend occupational therapy, well, all of them. Newborns, children, teens, adult, and the elderly all can go to occupational therapy if they need it. In the workplace, I've included here a video clip of a pediatric occupational therapy clinic and the day in the life of how they take care of and help children. So what do pediatric occupational therapists do? We're about to find out. So play and social interaction skills. This is very important for children to learn and develop, as well as visual motor skills. Visual motor skills and fine motor development are also often used in helping stroke patients because they have lost a lot of the ability to do certain things. Fitting kids with supportive splints, people of all ages can have these supportive splints if necessary. Feeding skills, a lot of children, including babies in the NICU, fun fact, will need to see an occupational therapist before they are able to be discharged from the hospital. This is because they have not been able to learn how to use their mouth to eat food, and they need help in order to do that. Now, it might not be very fun, but it is a very true fact. It also mentions self-care, which is another very important factor of occupational therapy, and it helps all patients with their mental and emotional health. Tools and techniques. Some of the techniques that are used in occupational therapy include red light therapy and cold laser therapy. What to know about cold laser therapy? Cold laser therapy is typically non-invasive and painless. It's used to improve healing and blood flow to injured tissues, and it's also often used in the formation of this gun-type product that's shown in the picture, and it's put against trauma-caused tissue or other injured tissues, and research shows that reduced pain for some conditions but no increase in functional movement is very often occurring. It may be done as part of a well-rounded rehabilitation program. Some of the tools involved in occupational therapy are resistance bands, which is pictured here. They help with muscle development, the improvement of stretching muscles, and also re-strengthening muscles after there has been some atrophy. Flex therapy bars, pegboards, and therapy putty are all also used. A TENS unit is used. TENS unit, that stands for Transcutaneous Electrical Nerve Stimulation Unit. It uses low voltage electrical currents to relieve pain in several different types of patients, and other objects that are used include dumbbells, exercise balls, and even toys. The annual wages in the U.S. for occupational therapists by state as of May 2023 is shown in this image here. Arkansas is shown here in the lower end of the mid-range for the annual wage, and the top 5 are shown on the left, with California being in first place, leading with a mean wage of $113,550, New York being second, leading with $107,530, Nevada being third with $107,070, and New Jersey being fourth with $105,880, and lastly Colorado with $104,950. So occupational therapy versus physical therapy. This topic is commonly known between a lot of people, especially medical students who are getting a start out in their career path or in their educational path. Occupational therapy is a lot different from physical therapy, but they both do often coincide or can work together if necessary. Occupational therapy has a much more holistic approach. They focus more on emotional and mental health as well as physical health rather than just physical health, which is what physical therapy mostly focuses on. Physical movement approach is the top priority for physical therapy, whereas occupational therapy aims to help with self-care, daily living necessities, and improving the overall quality of life. In physical therapy, they aim to get patients back in motion, perform body movements, and even improve the quality of movement. Thank you all for watching. Here are some other tools and objects used in occupational therapy, including this toy on the left here. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. I hope you've learned something new about occupational therapy, and I hope the subject interests you. Thank you.
So the more that you do this, the more comfortable not only will you be on camera, but also giving that 1001, 1002, 1003, and then pausing. Let's put on the closed captioning, mute it, start it from scratch, and see how, like Emma with our first presentation of the evening, how Marilyn is improving. She looks more comfortable in front of the webcam. As what we saw with the first presentation, it's always helpful to identify for the audience what the topic is, especially when you're informing. So, what is occupational therapy? She's defining the term. You can see it both with the transcript on the right and also with the closed captioning on the left, both of which, for the most part, are being presented in complete sentences. The closed captioning on the left, usually on the Loom platform and on YouTube, will pick up vocalics, ers, and ums a lot more than what you might find elsewhere. But when it comes up, you don't freak out about it. You just think, what brought me to the point where I had to fill the dead space with a filler word or a filler sound or Who does it serve? Amputations, chronic conditions such as carpal tunnel, all of the photos that she provides, again, assist us if we're not familiar with what an occupational therapist does. That's why having a visual of someone with a walker is really helpful to visualize what's going on, physical, mental, or learning disorders. I always say you can't rewind the tape in life, you just plug away. If you've had a stroke, and then ages, that's where some of the future visuals or images that she provides with kids come in handy. That's why the video is appropriately placed in the workplace so you can see what an occupational therapist does, in this case, with kids, or what does a pediatric occupational therapist do. Let's take off the closed captioning. Now you'll notice what I'm doing with our speeches so far this evening is playing them a little bit longer so we can specifically break down why the presentations are effective, how you're informing, and why the text image blend works so well. In this case, images being those provided by a video clip, which she's discussing as we bring the audio back up.
An occupational therapist before they are able to be discharged from the hospital. This is because they have not been able to learn how to use their mouth to eat food, and they need help in order to do that. Now, it might not be very fun, but it is a very true fact. It also mentions self-care, which is another very important factor.
So by incorporating the video clip, not only can we visualize what this is about, but you as students have the option. If you want to include audio with that video, it's okay. But if you want to talk over it and mute it, like what I'm doing with her now, that's fine too. Look at her design consistency, tools and techniques with the bullet points, what works for her when she's recording it with the techniques, with the tools. Is there anything here about cold laser therapy that she feels important enough to discuss? So basically, we've been watching these speeches not in their entirety twice, but to a good degree twice. That's how you learn. You can be constructive and positive in breaking down your own speeches. Closed captioning, transcript, visuals, like I said during our last class session, looking away to listen to your voice. Where do those dead spots come in? Are you incorporating a filler word? Mine would be something like and or now. Or are you including vocalics? And that silent pause was intentional. If you don't know what to say, pause. It seems much longer in a face-to-face course or in an online circumstance than it actually is, but just being aware of that is very important. Let's go to the last minute or so of her presentation and bring up the audio. How does she conclude this speech?
Therapy. This topic is commonly known between a lot of people, especially medical students who are getting a start out in their career path or in their educational path. Occupational therapy is a lot different from physical therapy, but they both do often coincide or can work together if necessary. Occupational therapy has a much more holistic approach. They focus more on emotional and mental health as well as physical health rather than just physical health, which is what physical therapy mostly focuses on. Physical movement approach is the top priority for physical therapy, whereas occupational therapy aims to help with self-care, daily living necessities, and improving the overall quality of life. In physical therapy, they aim to get patients back in motion, perform body movements, and even improve the quality of movement. Thank you all for watching. Here are some other tools and objects used in occupational therapy, including this toy on the left here. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. I hope you've learned something new about occupational therapy, and I hope the subject interests you. Thank you.
So what she decided to do with her webcam was to leave it in the default position, which if you have a Loom account is bottom left. Remember, if you scroll through our Wednesday class session, I was taking my webcam and literally moving it up and down all across the screen. But if you stay consistent and just scroll, in her case, straight right, straight up, straight left, it will remain aesthetically consistent rather than putting it right in the middle of the screen, as you saw on one of the Loom instructional videos from earlier this week. I would prefer to stay somewhere on the side. Emma went top right, and that worked. We have bottom left for Maryland. I decided to stay over here so I would not be lording over people in the upper portion of the screen, just out of the way. Now let's take a quick look at her slides. Title slide on occupational therapy. Moving into defining the term, as you can see, the transcript is following along. Who does it serve? Then you're in the workplace with the video clip. It was also helpful in her case, as we go on to tools and techniques with the techniques and the tools here, for her on one of her slides to include what the salaries are. There you have the cold laser therapy. This is what I was referring to with the annual wages. It looks like Arkansas is in the second of the four mean wage categories, with the lowest being in the lightest shade of blue, Arkansas being one cut above. Of course, in all of these states, you always have to consider cost of living, those types of things. But the mean wage is certainly very appropriate. And for most of the medical fields, the training with college or professional schools is going to be very expensive. Here's her next slide, occupational therapy versus physical therapy. What are the differences? Again, this is important for an informative speech because we may have a generic idea of what a therapist does, but we don't know what the differences are. And then we get into the thank you slide with an occupational therapist working with a child and a generic visual at the end. So what we saw with Emma examining mental health, and what we saw in our second presentation with Marilyn on occupational therapy really fit the bill of being informative. One advantage of being in a smaller class like we are in the summer is that we can really take your presentations in real time and break them down into more detail. It was a bit more challenging for me to try to be able to play our third presenter on camera. Let me explain. I'm waiting just a moment for it to show up on my screen. Then I can share the tab. That's why occasionally there's a little bit of a pregnant pause. This is Kadaya talking about women's basketball. I tried to download the video from Canva. Canva did not help me out a lot. I was lucky to be able to get this much of it on the screen. This is set up in a way that one of my students had a little over a year ago, where I have to play these slide by slide instead of going full screen because then it won't play on my computer. This is a women's basketball speech that is informative. You can see that she has 4 slides, and I'm going to play each of the slides separately because that is the only manner by which I can include it into the class session. So it will look a little bit unusual, but that will not affect her grade. Let's go ahead and play it, and then we'll break it down. This is Kadaya Curry discussing women's basketball.
Hi, my name is Kadaya Curry, and I'm doing my informative speech on women's basketball. I know a lot about basketball, but with college and stuff, I really don't know too much. But I did play basketball in high school. I played for like 7 years. But played for 7 years, and it's actually not bad. I actually love it. What is women's basketball? Women's basketball is a team sport of basketball played by women. Of course, it's basketball played by women. Yeah. It was the first play it was first played in 1892, 1 year after men's basketball at Smith College in Massachusetts. Okay, on this slide, we're going to talk about different types of basketball. First, we have full court. Most women basketball leagues and organizations plays full court basketball. Some recreational and community leagues still play half court. The next one is 6-on-6, also known as a basket in archery variant of basketball. Is played with 6 players per team, 3 forwards and 3 guards, using the same rules as regular basketball. So basically, you know how regular basketball play, you have rules, but they play 6 players. But usually it's 5, so they play 6, but you still have the same rules. Next, we have WNBA, the Women's National Basketball Association, abbreviation WNBA. It's a professional league with 12 teams that features some of the world's best women's basketball players. The WNBA uses a slightly smaller ball than the NBA. The next one is college. There are over 1,300 women college basketball teams in the NCAA D1, D2, and D3 and NAIA levels, as well as over 500 JoCo's women's basketball teams. The next one is most watched women's basketball. This year, the women's basketball championship game averaged over 18.7 million viewers, marking the first year ever the women's championship viewership surpassed the men's. It also became the most watched basketball game in men's or women's in college or professional since 2019, according to ESPN. So basically, recently, women's basketball played more than men's. Women's basketball, people is liking it more than men's right about now. And, hmm. and this is my
We didn't get the ending, but you're on the right track. As I had indicated, I did the best I could with being able to download this into a self-encompassing video. I do remember one of my online speech courses, as we go back to our first slide, during the pandemic was the same way. I had to break it down and play each of the slides with the video inside. So let's examine each of your slides in Canva. I think, Kadaya, first and foremost, what I would experiment with over the next week is to go to Microsoft PowerPoint or Google Slides, because your Canva account is not syncing up with my computer. That part of it has no bearing on your grade, but it's a little bit, as I mentioned before, unusual to play it in this fashion. Now let's look at your slides and your delivery. First, with the webcam, all of you need to be aware, as I showed earlier in this class session, of the lighting. Where is the light in your room? Especially if you have a laptop, you can basically either manipulate the location of the laptop in relation to whatever light source you have. Not everyone's going to have a ring light, that's okay. But at the same time, it's really hard to see you. So when you are experimenting with this in the future, before you even worry about the slides, think about, where am I on camera? This happens to me. The further I go on during a class period, as I look down, I feel like I'm sliding in the chair when all I need to do is this. If this doesn't prove for a media person that everything is content, where I just need to sit up in the chair. I don't want to mess with the webcam because it destroys the aesthetic of what's behind me, which is intentionally set up in an attractive package with all of the light in my house. Now, if you're in a dorm room, you can't necessarily do that, but it's always something to consider. It's okay to be selfish. Where am I in location of my webcam? What's the lighting? Where do I want to place it on the slide? Certainly, in this case, upper right-hand corner, like you saw with Emma, is acceptable, but you need to pay attention to a couple of things. Consistency of spelling, or in this case, you need to call it women's basketball, and the W needs to be capitalized. As time goes on, all of you are going to feel more comfortable with accurate punctuation, but you don't want anything to call attention to itself in terms of editing. You do all of that editing in advance, and then the final product, including the video, is exactly the way that you want it. Here, you're defining the term, what is women's basketball? Now that headline is fine because it's correctly spelled as fine. Women's basketball first played in 1892, and you're right, the rules have been changed. But here's the problem. Now you have the webcam down here, and we can't see what the visual is. Now, I watch a lot of basketball. I'm a sports junkie. I'm a news junkie. I know that's WNBA action because I recognize one of the uniforms by the player that's in the back. So again, How can you manipulate this to your advantage? You can leave your webcam in the upper right-hand corner. All you have to do is to take this headline, make it into a smaller font, take this data, turn it into a smaller font, possibly with bullet points. Then you don't have to worry about your webcam obscuring the WNBA photo that you placed on the bottom portion of the screen. Next, this needs to be corrected. You've got half and half black font on a dark blue background. The only way that works is if you have some type of highlighting around the lettering. Realistically, what you would want to do here is to have some type of uniform lighter color if you're going to be using a black font color. Then the other part of this is, and all of you will feel more comfortable with this as time goes on. Again, keep your webcam in one location and then take this headline and either shorten it or put it into a smaller font. But this is really hard to read. Even if I go full screen, which I'm not going to, that's really hard to read. Take any one of these templates and just experiment. What fits best with the approach that you want to take, and how is it going to make you extemporaneous? You do a good job of being extemporaneous here, but there are some issues in terms of the slide construction that you're going to have to edit and refine as time goes on. So like I said, whenever I'm giving you constructive criticism, it's based in a positive way. Is this well researched? Yes. Full court, 6-on-6, WNBA, which has been around since the late 1990s, and then college basketball. The issue here, not the problem, but the issue, this is virtually impossible to read. So continue to experiment. I told you earlier this week, if you're working with someone in class or you're on campus, don't be afraid. It's certainly acceptable to me to help each other out. Look over each other's shoulder. Can I read this? Does it make sense? Am I going to be able to be extemporaneous with the data that I'm presenting, in this case, on women's basketball? Then your final slide, and that's fine, most watched women's basketball game, and I'm guessing that was the 2024 championship game, which featured Iowa, 18.7 million viewers, the most watched basketball game. And of course, women's basketball has been more and more elevated, especially in 2024, because of Caitlin Clark, University of Iowa, making the championship game in women's NCAA tournament 2 years in a row, now with the Indiana Fever of the WNBA. But again, same thing. It's really hard to see your face, so utilize the light to your advantage so it flatters your face. And then, in this case also, use whatever is available here and make it smaller, or just move it a little bit off to the left. But to wrap this up, let's go ahead and play this one more time.
The next one is most watched women's basketball. This year, the women's basketball championship game averaged over 18.7 million viewers, marking the first year ever the women's championship viewership surpassed the men's. It also became the most watched basketball game in men's or women's in college or professional since 2019, according to ESPN. So basically, recently, women's basketball played more than men's. Women's basketball, people is liking it more than men's right about now. And, and this is my
Informative speech, thank you. You're not the first person, Kadaya, to ever be premature in cutting off your video. And remember, for all of you in this class, whenever I am giving you advice, I mean it in the most positive way. Can you improve, in this case, on your slides? Yes. But you've got some good things going here. It's just a matter of continually editing, continually refining. So the final product with all of these slides gives an audience the opportunity, if they don't know about it already, to learn about women's basketball. And I grew up in an era where women's basketball has really evolved. Many of you in the last couple of years just know it from the WNBA or maybe college basketball. So having that historical perspective as you do on the third slide makes a lot of sense. Now, we've had 3 informative speeches this evening. There are a couple of you who had indicated that you were having some recording issues. Make certain that I have those over the weekend so we can play them on Monday. However, you want to make certain that you're always in that regular rotation of Thursday, but I'll give you a little bit of leniency for one more week as we transition to persuasive speeches. I mentioned at the outset that in spring 2020, my Monday night course had to switch to online instruction because of the pandemic. This was a time where students are just scrambling to go to YouTube, to record off of their cell phones, to do whatever they can for their persuasive speech. And I want to show you 2 of those. Neither one of these are on my YouTube channel, but it shows you the ingenuity of students in trying to persuade the audience about a particular topic. The first one you are going to see, and I'm just waiting so I can share the tab. I have the closed captioning on here. This is from Francine Ansley. She's going to persuade the audience that social media might not necessarily be the best thing for everyone to use on a regular basis or to live off of their clicks on a social media platform. She went out of state when SAU shut down during the pandemic in spring 2020. She went home. She's giving her presentation off a laptop. You don't see her notes. All she's doing is looking at the camera. Yet she's very effective for a persuasive presentation. This is 4 years ago.
Hi, my name is Francine Ansley, and I'll be talking about how COVID-19 is lowering educational motivation. I chose to do this topic because I personally have felt that it's hard to find the motivation to do some assignments. Not for this class, but in general, it is really hard to get up and at them. So some background information. The public education system is watered down to begin with. There are not enough resources to accommodate every student. Compared to other countries, the United States has to educate to the masses. So it may look like we're really behind education-wise, but other countries such as Denmark, they have students take an assessment test to even get into schools. So if you're not smart enough and you don't pass high enough on this assessment test, then you can't even get into the program. So we're educating the masses, and we have to include special ed programs as well, and we have to have those materials and resources for every individual student. So with this quarantine, those resources can't be guaranteed. So high schools have stopped counting any online work, at least in California. Because administrators can't guarantee that all students will have access, some schools call online work enrichment, not part of the curriculum. So since they can't guarantee resources, grades cannot be lowered from what a student's previous grade was. They can only be raised. This begs the question, what is the motivation? why do students want to do any work anyways? If I had an A in a bio class and my bio teacher was still assigning work, but my grade couldn't be lowered, why would I feel the need to do it? Why is it that only private schools carry on? When it comes to elementary and middle schools, for example, my brother and sister, they go to the private school down the street. They've already been using online resources, and their schools don't accommodate to special need programs. So it was implemented immediately following the weekend of schools shutting down. They were already taking tests online and doing assignments, whereas public schools, such as the public high school where my dad works at, for 4 weeks they were doing nothing. It was basically an extended spring break that lasted a month. In California, the mandate says that students cannot be assessed and only allowed enrichment opportunities. So teachers can only improve the students' grades, and students do not have to actively participate in class this year. If you're a 4.0 student and you had straight A's, you could essentially be doing no school for 3 months. So is COVID-19 raising educational motivation or lowering it? Because when it comes to these students, not only are they not seeing any purpose in doing the work, but they are losing educational opportunities as well. When it comes to AP and IB testing, the reasons to do these hard classes are to get college credit and to boost your GPA. Now there's essentially no point in taking these tests and doing these classes because all the tests have been canceled this year. And the class of 2021 does not have to have required SAT admissions or ACT admissions for the Cal States and UCs here in California. So this begs the question, what was the point of prior assessments? Why did students last year and years before that have to be assessed on their acceptance into these schools based on what their SAT and ACT score was? Because now it doesn't matter. How will online learning affect achievement? With social distancing, this can increase student anxiety as students are feeling more and more isolated. With younger kids, communication skills may be halted. Students are basically doing busy work because they're assigned busy work. Since grades can't be lowered, they can only be increased. So students are basically cheating the system and not necessarily learning anything. The argument for this could be, well, now that students have all the time that they want and need, can't they use this time to adapt to their own personal schedule? Isn't it easier for them to study and take tests? Doesn't it accommodate them better? This could be the case for some students, but in general, teachers aren't really seeing this. They're just assigning loads and loads of busy work to remain a constant validity for the class, and students aren't really achieving anything. So back to the main topic point, is COVID-19 lowering educational motivation? Well, I would have to say yes, it is, and you can see that with students just cheating the system and not necessarily feeling the need to do any work. And this will probably be seen with an increased educational gap in the United States statistics, where there already was one, but now it may just be worse. All right, thank you for.
What I appreciate with her presentation is not only her sincerity and thoughtfulness, but when she's discussing how she feels some professors are giving, quote, busy work online during the pandemic. As we've done with everyone else, we'll leave the closed captioning on. I do that as a service because in her case, doing it off a webcam like many of you are, she's doing it off of a webcam looking directly into it from her laptop. That's why you don't see visuals. You'll see a unique one from our other presentation from that term in just a couple of moments. But let's mute her audio, go back to roughly about the last minute. Pay attention to her eye contact. As I mentioned, she really is sincere in discussing elements of social media not necessarily being hazardous to people's health or well-being in time. In the last moment, she's discussing it from the standpoint of online instruction during the pandemic. Like many of you, she looks away from her webcam to think about what she wants to say, but she is truly extemporaneous, using her bullet points and images on her slides, which she submitted to me separately as part of the overall persuasive package. Is she, in her last 20 seconds, persuading us to have a buyer beware attitude when it comes to social media? I think she does it quite well, wrapping it up by talking about it from an educational perspective. And there she is, right at the end in that 4 to 6 minute window. The last speech of the evening and the second spring 2020 pandemic persuasive speech is unique in a good way. This is from Addison Bennett. Notice the location when I start this, where she gives her presentation. She's a little bit lower on screen, so I'm intentionally leaving closed captioning off. She has her laptop off to the side. She is shooting it off of her cell phone. It was pretty clear that what you just saw with Francine, she was recording it off of her computer and uploading it to YouTube. Addison is recording it off of her cell phone and uploading it to YouTube. But notice her creativity, not only with the laptop, but where she is recording and how she incorporates interactivity. Addison Bennett, Spring 2020, persuasive presentation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Addison, and tonight I'm going to be persuading you on why having 7 siblings is the best. So let's get into it. So number 1 is you're literally never bored. I can't be bored. I have 7 siblings, even though only like 4 of them are in this presentation. Life is always like a reality TV show. I personally would say that we're better than the Kardashians. I think we're funny. There's always a lot of drama, but it's like good drama. It's always funny. And we just always have a lot of laughs, and we always hang out and have fun. So this is a picture of us hiking with our dog, and then this is a family day when they came, and my sister Bella Kate and I rode the swings. Number 2 is you always have someone to lean on, whether it be someone in their late 20s or if it's someone who literally just hit double digits. You always have somebody who will be there for you and support you and just let you cry. And this is a picture of my brother. We were on FaceTime and we were both upset about school. 3, you're never alone, so you can get lonely. If I want to be alone, I have to lock up all my doors and be quiet so they don't think I'm in there. But even if I do lock my doors and they're not in here, they will always blow my phone up until they come in. Number 4 is you're always going to be entertained. Always. There is never a dull moment when there's a large group of people. So everyone's different, but everyone's also a lot alike. And it's always funny if there's beef, or if your siblings are fighting or arguing or beefing with one another, you can just sit back and watch. It's not that great when you're the one they're beefing with, but it's pretty funny if it's not you. So our Christmas card, or our Christmas pictures were pretty funny because we were all at each other's throat, except for Maddox, the middle child, who was just hanging out. And then this is of a year ago today of my sister and I and like our whole family dyeing eggs. her egg cracked. But yeah. So, next are some honorable mentions of how it's always entertaining. There's always something happening, something. So, for starters, these two videos right here are from New Year's Eve, like 4 or 5 years ago, and we made like 250 little smokies, like the little weenies that you put in like crock pots and stuff. So we made like 250 of them because there was a lot of us there. And Beckett, our youngest brother, he loved them. I think we maybe each had 10. So this kid probably had at least 160 Smokies by himself, and he loves them.
What are you doing? Did you eat all the Smokies?
So he ate at least 150 by himself, and there was only 9 left, and he ate the rest of them, and he was actually upset. He cried. He also did get very sick. He also broke his arm. But yes, as you can tell, it's always something in the house. Always something. Also, they are your permanent and forced best friends. I mean, you spend 24/7 together, like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with the same 7 people. You're bound to become best friends. And even though they get on your nerves, they're literally always there for you, which is the best. So Beckett, again, he's kind of our craziest one. This is just a funny video of him. I love this video.
I don't think they say that.
What do they say? Like moose.
That's it.
But yeah. Number 6 is you can't be embarrassed. So my shame is their shame. If I say something silly, it's okay. They've probably said something even sillier than I have, and it's always just fun. So no one can ever be embarrassed. Everyone's kind of clowns, to say the least. And last but not least, there's always enough people for games. We have game nights all the time, whether it's cards or board games or charades, anything. We never have to look at how many players you need to play the games because we know that we will always have enough because there's so many of us. So these are just some videos of us playing games. This one is us playing Uno, but it's really just the kids being crazy.
He's gonna get whipped.
2, 3, 4.
Just kidding. That was the one of us playing Pie Face. This one is the Uno one. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Of course, what you noticed from Addison is the absolute joy reflected in her eyes of what it's like growing up in a large family. In fact, she told me later that her house was quite noisy at the time this is being recorded. That's why she tried to find a relatively quiet place in which to record. Sitting on the floor, laptop behind her, recording on her cell phone. Let's put the closed captioning on, mute the audio, and in this case, just go back to roughly about the last minute and a half. The setup obviously is a bit awkward, but she had practiced it enough where not only does she have quality slides where she's telling the story, she's persuading us about being in a large family, and that's why persuasive topics don't have to be really serious. It all depends upon what you think is important to discuss, like the wild card the last week. She's being extemporaneous. She's speaking in complete sentences. Her personality is jumping through the screen with the obvious pleasure that she has in sharing what's taking place in her family. If you pay close attention to her visuals, that's the family, a headline, and basically what amounts to a compound sentence on the left-hand side. All of these folks, like what you saw with our other presenter, all of these folks, Francine included, were sending me their slides separately, but that has audio, so let's pick that up in the last 10 seconds.
And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
And that's how she wraps it up with a smile on her face, which is appropriate, and that concludes her presentation. Thanks. Let's conclude for the evening, not only by signposting these two persuasive speeches as good examples of what you might want to think about next week. Going to my YouTube channel next, click on the tab so you can see it. I'm already scrolled down on the playlist that includes speech to persuasive speeches starting in spring 2020. The two that you saw, Jocelyn Keller up on top with Loom, being a classmate, why you should not procrastinate. She was experimenting with a larger webcam on Loom with the slides being a little bit smaller. I'll probably play that next week, but there are 18 topics on my YouTube channel. Talk to someone about your problems, cartoons, why animation is an important and useful medium, closing SeaWorld, finding a church family, positive co-parenting, why you should set goals, why you should recycle, heartworm prevention in dogs, improving education, the importance of kindness, pursuing celebrity lifestyles, take a road trip, do not fly, why the moon landing couldn't be faked, excellent from 2 years ago, I'll play that next week, why you should never work in the food industry, spaying your dog, why children should not have social media until 15. Finally, why silent letters should be eliminated. That does not include tons of different persuasive topics that are available on my website. Let's conclude for the evening by going to Blackboard Ultra in the student preview mode. This video will soon be posted as session 11. Some of the materials that have been given to me will be posted underneath previous examples of student speech videos, but down here with current examples. I don't know what they'll be. I can tell you that by the time we return on Monday, all of the grades for materials that have been sent to me will be available in the gradebook section on Blackboard Ultra. So let's go to the gradebook. The demonstrative speech and the informative speech will be filled in. 40 out of the 100 points. For anyone whose informative speech was not shown this evening, please make certain that you send it to my SAU email address so I can include it at the beginning of class on Monday with the informative speeches that I showed you. There are good things in all three of them. My constructive criticism is always, one, couched in a positive way, and two, designed to help you improve in those three areas from the SAU speech evaluation form available on Blackboard Ultra. Content, delivery, visuals. Let's keep up the good work. 2 weeks to go. And that concludes the recording session for this evening. Have a nice long weekend. We will return on Monday.